Now you can hit it.
Thank you very much. We're good to go. I need any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Declare that closed. Move in a seconder to go into closed session. Councillor Armstrong, Councillor McHugh. All in favor? Thank you. We'll go into closed session and Okay. Call the meeting to order, and please stand for Indigenous Land Acknowledgement and the National Anthem. Thank you.
We begin this meeting by acknowledging that Quinte West is on Indigenous land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. We thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Long before today, there have been Indigenous peoples who have been the stewards of this place. In particular, we acknowledge the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte First Nation. This territory is covered by numerous treaties. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to this place. We also recognize the contribution of the Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous peoples have made, both in shaping and strengthening this community in particular, and our province and country as a whole. This acknowledgement serves as recognition of the contributions and historical significance of Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island and demonstrates our collective commitment to meet the promises and address the challenges of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission within our community.
Well, we should have a healthy meeting tonight. Got a lot of people here who work for healthcare anyways, so that's good stuff, eh? Good stuff. Any general comments? I'll start, Councillor Kunze, before we get into the heavy stuff here.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I had the pleasure of driving on the north end of Loyalist Wallbridge Road and on the resurfaced section of Foxborough Sterling Road last week, and they are beautiful. Thank you very much to the city staff, the contractor, and my fellow councillors for getting that work done.
Great. Thank you. Councillor, good. Councillor Sterling. Wow. Councillor O'Neill.
Nothing for me, thank you.
You're good too?
I'm good.
Oh,
thank you.
wow. I didn't ask your wife. Councillor Elliott, I'll go this way. Councillor Card, you're on. You're good? Councillor Sharp? Okay, wow. Councillor Reid?
Well, of course, I always have something. I just want to mention that the Frankfurt Legion Branch 387 is holding their Veterans Dinner on Saturday night at the Frankfurt Legion, and of course, I look forward to seeing many people at the Cenotaph on Mill Street on Monday, November the 11th, for their Remembrance Day services. I'm sure that there will be a great turnout at Frankfurt Cenotaph and Trenton Cenotaph to honor our veterans.
Yes, thank you very much. You're absolutely right, and they certainly should be. We should be there to acknowledge what we have today because of the people who either paid the supreme sacrifice or did their best to help us have what we've got. So I thank you very much for reminding us of that. Yeah, and I just want to mention, yeah, my wife and I are coming up to close what you call 61 years of marriage, and somebody close to us here said, not on council, said, I was going to send you flowers, but I want you to know that without your wife, you'd have to really work hard to get elected. So that's what he gave me instead of flowers, so I guess that's worth a lot, isn't it? Eh? Yeah, so, and I'm sticking around till Jane misbehaves, so that's my objective, so, thank you. Okay, anything else? I guess we're on to the regular agenda. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Did I miss that?
I think there's 2 pages stuck together there.
Oh, okay. Yep, that's right. Any disclosures? No, declare that closed then, thank you. Yeah, I am stuck together. That really helps the agenda.
Bee city now, probably got honey.
Really helps the agenda when you miss a page. Yeah. Okay, approval of the agenda. Councillor McHugh moves, seconded by Councillor Card. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Thank you. Approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting held on the 16th and be approved, 1624. Moved by, mover and a seconder, Councillor Armstrong moved, McHugh seconds. Comments or questions? Go ahead.
In the report about developmental fees, it says background fees. I think it should say developmental. If you want to check, I can show you later.
Okay, thank you. We'll so note it and we'll follow up.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? All in favor then? Thank you. And public meeting, the Council of City of Quinte West will hold a public meeting concerning 2025 fees and charges bylaw. And the Council for the City of Quinte West will hold a public, okay, we'll do one at a time. Okay. First public meeting. Okay. You want to, somebody go ahead with that one? I got it here someplace, but where the heck it is.
Council for the City of Quinte West will now
Yeah.
hold a public meeting concerning 2025 fees and charges. This is the public's opportunity to voice any objections or concerns they may have with respect to the 2025 fees and charges. Sorry. Public notice was published in the Trentonian and Community Press on October 17th, October 24th, and October 30th. Notice was also published on the city's news and notices page October 15th. The purpose was previously discussed in staff report QW 2024-00139 by Caleb Denowden, Director of Finance, City Treasurer, regarding 2025 to 2027 fees and charges proposal. We had no written submissions received.
Okay, then are there any persons present who would like to make any presentation regarding development charge? Any at all? Come on up, please. Thank you.
No development charges.
Fees and charge.
Sorry, what did I say?
Development charges.
Sorry.
Name.
Hello, everyone. My name is Janice Porpat, and I'm just here to discuss the marina fees that were raised by 5%. So the last meeting that we attended was October 16th, and there was some comments made by Councillor Boyce that he felt that the marina's fees should be very similar to the fees in Toronto. There were several voters here for that meeting, and we left feeling that we were pretty much deflated, as we are taxpayers as well. We did agree that there should be a separate fee for taxpayers that live in the area and people from outside of the area. We totally agree with that. But we felt that the comparison to us, to Toronto, is totally inaccurate. Our marina has very few amenities that we have to offer people. If you compare us to, say, Toronto Island has a swimming pool, it has a big pool house, it has restaurants and everything right there at the marina. So you don't even have to leave the marina for anything. So you can't compare apples to oranges. What you can compare us to, though, would be similar marinas that run the way that Trenton Marina is run. So those marinas would consist of Myers Pier and Crates. So I didn't do the research, but another member of the Trenton Marina that has a boat there did some research. And the numbers are very, I was quite shocked actually by the numbers. So you said that we were one of the lowest paying for footage in the area. That is false. We're one of the highest, actually. So I have the numbers and I can share it with you. So if you look at Transport Marina, if you took a 30-foot boat, we're paying $2,045.40. If you compare that to Myers Pier, they're paying $1,767.50. If you're comparing it to Crates, which is a full-service marina, I may add, they're paying $1,950. So with those numbers, you guys already voted that you're going to increase our fees by 5%. That's already been passed, so there's nothing we can do about it. But as a taxpayer, I also felt there was a little bit of pitting between taxpayers and the folks that own boats or have boats in the marina. And I thought that was very unfair. We are members of this community, and I feel that we're all wanting the same outcome. We want the best outcome for our community, and that means supporting our community in whatever way we can. So I don't feel pitting one group against another is going to help any of us. I feel that we should all be working together for the best outcome for our community. We understand that the breakwater that's a whole different topic, because we really had nothing to do with that. We didn't hire whoever put that breakwater in. That had nothing to do with us. So I feel that now the marina folks that have their boats there are being punished because that was an error in somebody's part. So the questions I have for all you today, after I've rambled on and taken up your time, is the 5% that you guys are going to implement on the marina folks. Is that going to be just for this year, or that's going to be for the next 3 years, or what's that going to be, or have you even made that decision? Thank you.
Director or CEO Clays, you want to answer that? Good, or Director Denelton? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, maybe Ms. Grimman can speak to that. She probably knows the fees better than I do, but I believe it was the percentage each year, but I'll let her clarify.
Okay.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the speaker. Thank you for your feedback and your comments tonight. Yes, the proposal that was before council as part of the fees and charges bylaw was to bring a 5% each year increase to those marina fees. Obviously, we are here tonight to receive public feedback, and again, I certainly appreciate that. I'll just also remind council that at the last meeting, there was a commitment and direction provided to staff to bring back a report, both to review the bag tag fees and the marina fees. So that's certainly still the intention and something that we are working on, to bring back that comparison. And certainly the same comparisons and many more that you did bring up in your speech this evening. So again, I appreciate the feedback.
Thank you. I think it would be important, though, to look at and compare us to the marinas that I had stated, because we do have, well, us and Myers Pier have very similar amenities. You can't compare us to Crates, they're a full-service marina. We do not have that here. And to compare us to Toronto, that's totally incorrect. So I really felt that was inappropriate to be stated by a member of council, because everybody's watching this and this is open to the public. So now the public, if a councilor stating that fact when in fact it wasn't fact, it was a comment. So maybe next time around you might want to think how you voice things, because the general public is going to take what you guys say as faith, and I don't think that's fair when it's inaccurate. But thank you very much for your time to allow me to speak here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. And Director Grimman, there's a report coming to council on the 20th of November, correct? Okay, thank you. Councilor.
A question. You said you compared Trenton Marina to Myers and Crates, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I have others if you want them as well.
Do they have a two-tier pricing system for taxpayers of Belleville, Quinte West?
No, they do not.
Just the same?
Yeah. But I agree with that. I agree with that decision that you guys made, that there should be a two-tier, but we have to be careful. You don't want to make it too high, because then they're going to stay wherever they're coming from. So, I mean, you have to watch. Okay, any other questions?
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you. Okay. All right.
Anyone else?
Anyone else who wishes to speak? I guess that's my question. Anyone else? Okay. Okay, then what I have in front of me is council will give further consideration to the item at the November 20th, 24 regular council meeting when the bylaw will be presented. Public meeting regarding this matter is now closed. Thank you very much.
CIP.
Okay, then the next one is a public meeting regarding the CIP, the Commercial and Tourism Community Improvement Plan. This is, anyone would like to speak either in favor or against? Come on up. Thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship. This is the public presentation by the consultant, and then
Go ahead.
Then we can have additional questions to us. So, good evening, everyone, members of council, staff, and members of the public. So this is the statutory meeting required under Section 28 of the under the Ontario Planning Act, with respect to the establishment of both the community improvement project area as well as the community improvement plan itself, which is a piece of work that we've been working on with city staff for a few months now. So I'll just move forward. Here we go. So in terms of what is a CIP, just so everyone is clear, the requirements for the statutory process here is this is a provision under the Ontario Planning Act to promote the improvement for any geographic area, any properties that exist within the city. To do that, there has to be provision to get sanction to do it by circumventing what's the prevention of bonusing under Section 106 of the Municipal Act. So as you know, you can't give favours or better treatment to one property or over another under the provisions of the Municipal Act, but under the provisions of the Planning Act, by designating an area, a geographic area within the city, or the city as a whole, you can prepare a publicly reviewable document that establishes the ways that you can incentivize owners of properties or their assigns, so developers, tenants, anyone that is related to a property in question. So this is a tried and tested method of economic development, and it's developed over a number of years. So this plan, like many others that you may come across in the province, is designed to focus on promoting private sector investment. And of course, Council has already got an existing CIP for the downtown areas of Frankfurt and Trenton. That was penned in 2005, I believe, and up until the point where it's been just held in abeyance as we focus on this process, it registered around $600,000 in spending, I believe, on municipal spending on about 113 applications. That's about 5,000 or so and change per application, so that's good. There was a good take-up. And if you look at it in terms of what you would expect, if you look around the province, the ratio of public funds spent to private funds that get leveraged as a result of that investment, it varies, but a rule of thumb is anywhere from sort of 6 to 10. So one public dollar, 6 to possibly 10 private dollars. So that 600,000 could be 3.6 million or 6 million in total. So these things work. The question is always, as the economy changes, as needs change, how do you wish to use this so you're not just assuming that public money can continue to be put forward to these things. So it has to actually always work effectively, and so the metrics are important. So the existing plan, as I mentioned, what we're trying to do here is relate to an expansion of the CIP or a retargeting, I would put it that way, to focus on, and you'll see the title of this, it's Commercial and Tourism Community Improvement Plan. So the city has gone through its exercise of doing, an economic development plan, a tourism development strategy several years ago. This is one of the tools of implementation to make some of those goals come true. So we started, way back at the beginning of the year. We've gone through background review. We've undertaken a degree of stakeholder engagement. This is part of it as well. And then we've also drafted the Community Improvement Plan, which is a a statutory document. And then upon review of any public comments that we receive or comments from council, we would then move to finalise the plan, and then it can be put forward for implementation at council's leisure. So the purpose of the CAP, I'll skip over this a little bit, but the specific items that we want to be able to do here is maintain a focus on rejuvenation and expansion of commercial and mixed-use properties in the downtown. In this particular plan, we are not focusing on residential. So this is not a residential or affordable housing community improvement plan. Council, if it wishes to do that, may obviously pursue that separately. What it does do, though, is we focus on commercial and mixed use. So one of the goals is always going to be to make sure that the good bones that you have in the downtown in terms of that fabric and the two-story buildings and maybe even some of the three-story buildings get used for other things on their upper floors. So whether that be an accountant's office or is a residential, that's the sort of thing we can support. So although we say it's not residential focused, if the idea is to sustain and maintain and improve the future sustainability of a commercial building that has the opportunity for using the upper floors, and that might be residential, that's great, that's supportable. So there's a little bit of discretion in everything that is done in this plan. The other aspect is to recognise that, as Southern Ontario continues to percolate in terms of its economic activity and its role as a tourism venue, it's a good opportunity for Trenton in particular Trenton, to take advantage of the hotel accommodations market, which puts people in the city. And there is demand. You see it next door, the other side of Wallbridge Loyalist, with hotels going in there. The goal is, I think, to do something similar here. And then to help the rural areas as well that may have a tourism opportunity as well. So the tactics, just to go through it, we will remain having a focus on facade improvement to the older commercial building blocks. These kinds of things are what we would refer to as small capital projects, so they are achievable. They range from anything to dealing with windows and treatments, facade improvement, sandblasting of brick, pulling off the vinyl siding, helping the rear and side of properties. It works and people see it. It's something that any plan that has a downtown flavour to it should have that. Above and beyond that, there may be an opportunity for a little bit more funding for more major renovations. And then you can also recognise that improvements to accessibility, improved signage is something that can be of value, and so some small-scale programs of support have been put in place. The eligibility for this, every dollar that is spent, because they are taxpayer dollars that get put forward to these, generally speaking, there has to be a perceived public benefit. So when we talk about renovation and assistance to properties, it's not putting a new roof on the building or taking care of the boiler that might be in the basement. It's something that is directly related to the look, the appearance, the functionality for the public to come in, so the economic activity. If that's a restaurant, or if I said that if that's an accountant's office, it still has something that is designed to improve the service that's offered, the value of the property, the economic function overall. So one of the main changes, though, that we want to put in place here is, because we want to focus on the rural areas in as much as we're relating to very defined tourism opportunities, the best approach is to define the entire boundaries of the city of Quinte West as a community improvement project area. And though that is something that is done increasingly more frequently in community improvement plans around the province, it does not, for example, indicate that you're opening the books and the incentives to every single property that is within there, because as you go through the plan, you'll see there are very strict eligibilities, and I'll come on to that. There are, however, two priority areas that remain. So Frankfurt remains a priority area. We've tweaked the boundaries a little bit on these based on the work that we've done, and similarly for Trenton downtown, we've adjusted the boundaries of what we're including within that priority area. And so those two areas for commercial properties that are looking for some incentives to match their investment, those will remain a priority. You would approve applications for those before you would any applications that might be relevant to other areas. So without getting into too much detail here in the interest of time, we have come up with 5 programs, and I'll just go through those quickly. And then in order to make sure that you are not providing uncertainty or a lack of clarity on who is eligible, which properties are eligible when you are designating the entire city as a project area, you have to link it to something. And so what we've done is we've linked it to the zoning designation. And so that, you're either in that designation or you're not. And if you are, and then you meet other criteria of eligibility, which are laid out in the plan, then you could put forward an application, and the application has to be complete. You can't just throw bits of paper at the city and say, here's an application for funding. There's very clear protocols, and they'll be further established after the plan is approved. But to go through it, we've broken it out into the downtown commercial, so that's the priority area for downtown, really. Then there's the corridor commercial, which is a slightly different zoning category. It's more the highway commercial. But there was good reason to extend the incentives to that area as well, not just focus on the downtown commercial. Then the recreation commercial, which is a category which is predominantly more in the rural areas. And then agricultural, and then with respect to agricultural, we're not funding the business of agriculture. What we would be incentivizing would be the business of tourism that can happen on farmsteads and other rural businesses that operate. So in that respect, to give an example, if you were to open let's just say a winery, and you were allowing people to come onto the property, and if the zoning allowed this, because you have to make sure, all of this means that whatever you're funding, it has the approval of the zoning, you're doing it as a legal use, you're allowed to have people come on for on-farm retail, purchase of alcohol or foodstuffs, whatever it might be. That's something that would be eligible under the plan, because you're bringing the public visitors in. So when I come from Toronto with kids when they were younger, and we come to the apple farms out here, the stuff you might do in and around, that would be an eligible cost. Helping the farmer maximize the yield of their crops is not relevant. Putting equipment in is not relevant. So there's a little bit of discretion here, but I think it's fairly clear how we've done it. The programs, for facade and signage, I've talked about. The other one, planning fees and building permit grants. This one is a useful one. If you are going forward with an application and are serious about it, there is the opportunity to obtain some rebate on the planning fees that you would pay. It's not technically a rebate because it's funded from a community improvement plan reserve that needs to be funded. But in layman's terms, for the applicants, it means that essentially they wouldn't pay for site plan control or a zoning bylaw application fee. There are some specifics about making sure that that gets paid out on the assumption that you get approval. If they put in a frivolous application, you're not going to fund it. And then building permit grant is a cap, but I think $7,000 is the maximum, but it helps defray some of those costs. So for certain applicants, this is going to help. Then there is a building and property renovation grant, and that one, it relates to providing what we call forgivable loans. So the maximum there is $25,000. Everything here is on the 50-50 principle. So the idea is that you would fund to a maximum of 50% of the cost of the project, or $25,000, whichever is less. And that's the same for the facade grant as well. And it's forgivable in the sense that if you were to provide $25,000, it earns forgiveness. It's a loan to begin with. It earns forgiveness of 20% each year. So if they remain the owner of the property and remain good civic citizens, property-wise, over that period of time, then essentially it translates from a loan to a grant, and they pay nothing back at the end of 5 years. If they were to sell the property after 12 months, for example, they would owe $20,000, okay, out of that $25,000. So that, and again, It's a fairly typical program, which means that it takes some of the risk away from councils providing a pretty healthy amount of funding, $25,000, and then seeing somebody potentially flip the property within a short period of time. And then lastly, accessibility grants, and then the tax increment grants. These are for the bigger projects, broken it into 3 streams for new commercial development. So if a new commercial retail project were to be developed on a main street and involves a new building, it's going to generate fairly significant assessment uplift. It's going to create more taxes, and the idea is that you would give back for a period of time, 5 years maximum, a tax increment amount which is equivalent to 75% of the municipal, so your portion of the tax bill, not the education portion, but your portion of the tax bill. It also would apply to any kind of use that is similar in the rural areas. I think there'll be relatively few of them. But the idea is that, again, if a new use came in that met your criteria in a rural area and somehow managed to create a significant uplift, then there would be a tax increment grant that you could provide back. And then lastly, the idea of the hotels. So specific, and we see this in some other plans that you see around the province, it's quite acceptable to specify, we want the accommodations plant of this municipality to be improved. Anyone that comes forward taking risks to improve their properties, then, and in theory, new properties as well, you can provide a tax increment grant. And that is taxes, so that's foregone revenue, meaning you don't have to fund it now, but as that property gets built and starts to pay property taxes, you treat it as foregone. I mean, the reality is there is a cost to you when you add more buildings and things coming into the municipality, but for a limited period of time, 5 years, you don't collect the revenue, but thereafter you can start collecting it as well. I'm not going to go through each program we do have in here, but just to give you some quick figures, the maximum assistance for facade improvement would be $12,500 per property. That's a reasonable figure. It can't be too low because people need to, it is an effort to make the investment and draw up plans and do all of this. If you have side and or rear facing publicly accessible elements to your building, so if you're a corner lot and really you operate on at least 2 sides, there's a top-up option to go up to $17,500, so you can deal with both. And signage is capped at $2,500. The planning fees and building permits, I've already spoken about that, but it is, again, it's a 50% cost matching up to $3,000 per property, and then building permits up to $7,000 per property, again, on a 50-50 basis. The building and property improvement grant, as I've mentioned, 50% cost matching again. So if the project was $40,000, you would only be providing $20,000 as a maximum, but it does have a forgiveness element to it at 20% per annum. And there'll be other criteria in there. So again, like I said, we're not funding things that really are just general maintenance and building systems improvement. They have to be geared to benefiting the property as an income-producing use, really serving the public. So and certainly that's relevant for a tourism plan. The Building Accessibility Improvement Grant is simply that. It's to those projects that they don't want to spend too much money, but they know they need to improve accessibility for people, meeting the objectives of the AODA that's been on the books for a long time in the province. That's why we've carved out a smaller project. So $5,000 would mean they'd be spending $10,000 if they were to get the maximum grant. So I think there's going to be good take-up on that. And then I mentioned the tax increment equivalent grant. There'll be relatively few of these. They involve lawyers. You have to have stuff put on title. Any approval you gave would be conditional until conditions are met. So typically, I would come in and say, I'm going to put 5 stories of commercial downtown. You would say, well, we're going to give you an increment grant based on the numbers you've provided. We like the project, but you have to go and do it. So it's only an in-principle approval. And then once you go through and you get the planning approvals, and then MPAC does the reassessment, and then the taxes are paid, then you can exercise this option. So it's a little bit of a long-term option, but it works in many places in the province, and I think it's a great project to have, program, I should say, to have on the books, as we've specified. So, pending any comments, we have reached out to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. They are not an approval authority on this, but they are a commentary, and we have received some comments from them, which is in line with expectations. So no major changes, but the next iteration of this would just take on board some of their comments that they have from the Minister's perspective, which is generally technical legislative statements. The next step would be to come back to Council with a final CIP. So any changes would come back, and then Council would have its ability to adopt the plan if it so chose. Once you adopt that plan, you then have to give under the Planning Act, you have to give notice of adoption no later than 15 days of the point at which you adopt the plan. And then within that period, there's a 20-day period, I should say, after that, which allows anyone that wishes to appeal the plan, because it's a statutory planning instrument. Anyone can appeal the plan to the Ontario Lands Tribunal. Out of the sort of 30 or so plans that my company has been involved and we've written, we've only had one appeal, and that was to just add a property within the boundary of the community improvement project area. And that was a boundary that was not the municipality as a whole. So that particular issue would go away with this boundary that we have. Anyway, very unlikely to have any appeal, he said. And then after that, you're free then to consider the budgetary requirements as we've laid out. I would just add that this plan is, these plans are entirely discretionary. You have to go through a statutory process, but at the end of the day, this is about economic development. So the professional staff that the city has that will draw up, the evaluation committee and the criteria for how you adjudicate applications. There would be, at this point, 2 application intakes a year. There would be a budget that is known, and they would make decisions that would then come back to council. Some of the more straightforward applications for facade improvement would be, the proposal here is that they would be delegated authority. There would be a council report, but it would be an approval that could come from a senior member of staff in terms of sign-off. So that's where we are on the plan, and I really appreciate you listening to all of this material, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll take questions here right now while you're here. Councillor O'Neill?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mike, I have a couple questions on the tax equivalent grant. You said it can be up to 75%. If you're paying new tax of $100,000, up to 75% of the $100,000. And I believe it's on a point system. Would it be 75% for the whole 5 years, or would it be a declining amount as it goes through the years?
Just on the first part, it's the 75% for 5 years of the municipal portion. So as you know,
Correct.
There is the education portion. I'm not sure whether there's a county portion, but it is only the amount that you would be retaining for your own purposes. So it would be a portion of the tax bill. And then...
But is it 75% a year for the whole 5 years?
I'm just going to give you that number. We have written plans in the past where we have done a staircase, which is what you're referring to, where you come down. So you'd come down. But they're usually over 10 years. So it's another way of just limiting the commitment that a council is making to, 10 years, here's maximum grant. That's quite a investment to make. So the 5-year limit is the one. And I don't believe, I'm just going to check, I don't believe we have it as a staircase, which means city to reimburse the landowner for all eligible costs by way of an annual grant equivalent to a maximum of 75% of the municipal portion of the incremental property tax increase over an established base. You just have to know what the actual increment is. So you have to establish what the base tax is before the development. And no, I don't believe we have in any way created it as a staircase. So you would get 75% per year for 5 years.
Okay. My other question is, we've just implemented a new industrial development charge, and I believe we have a staff report coming later, and I think we need to adjust the grants and everything for these new development charges. Could you comment on that too?
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to, through you, Your Worship. the CIPs and DC exemptions are kind of two sort of tools that you have. So in some cases you see the example, well, could we just not charge DCs? That's equivalent to having this kind of incentive, and that's true. But where you decide to put in DCs, you know how it works. You can't just exempt an individual property. You have to exempt an entire class of development. Like say, industrial is going to have no DCs levied on it, for example. So it's a bit of a clumsier tool to go through exemptions. So the CIPs themselves have been used because you can get that granular where you can say there's an application from this property, and as long as you fund it from a CIP reserve, you could have a development charges equivalent grant, under a CIP, for example, where you could take the DC and then you give it back or a portion of it as a CIP incentive. So the CIP is a really good vehicle for allowing you to work with a regime where you have DCs in place. You just have to fund it from a CIP reserve, because the DC reserve has to be made whole, right? You can't have it any other way. So if I'm hearing you correctly, and you're putting in new DCs, there is the option to have a development charges related program in here, should you want it. Now, if you don't do it at this point, and you were to bring it in a year's time, or then there's every chance that it would be a material change, and we'd have to come back here and go through a statutory meeting like we are today and work with finance to just work out what the exposure is if you were to incentivize back some of the DCs for projects. But it's certainly something to consider. So the CIPs and DCs, they can work well together if that was the question.
Okay, Councillor Stedall.
Thank you, Worship. So question on that. If you fund a DC exemption back out of the DC reserve, do you not undermine the quality of a DC study that was done that is anticipating a certain amount into a reserve in order to build certain projects? So in effect, what you're doing is like I say, you're undermining the DC study.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the alternate is the tax incentive grant, which is a reduction of taxes over a number of years. First of all, with that type of a program, you don't have to build up, you don't have to use a reserve for that because it's on money that you're going to be receiving in taxation because of new development. So in effect, what you're doing is you're reducing the amount of money that you receive over a certain number of years until the incentive grant is finished. And so that is different from even the other CIP programs that you're talking about, which those have to be funded from a reserve. Like, we're going to have to take some tax dollars to fund those.
Correct. I think just to sort of comment on the items that you mentioned. So, I mean, in terms of if a DC background study, it's not my area of expertise, but if meaning I don't do DC background studies, but we comment on them, but we don't do them. But the idea is if you were going into a DC background study and you were knowing you were going to exempt a certain class of development, you do the background study based on that, right? So I don't think it undermines the DC at that point. The idea that you would just come in and exempt a certain class of development after the fact, you're going to have to, the DC funding is going to be affected by that, and so there is going to be a knock-on effect. This is why the CIP is a much better vehicle to deal with incentivizing development where you think there's going to be a challenge, because you can create a grant, and you could use a DC related grant and a tax increment grant if you wanted. The DC grant means you have to fund it up front, so that's where it can get expensive and why you have to do your homework in terms of what it's going to mean if you were to develop that program. And the tax increment grant, you're right, it's foregone revenue. Some municipalities, and I know you're in finance, some municipalities do try and build reserves, some of the bigger cities. Guelph was a good example of that, of just putting money away every year, knowing they were going to be having projects that were going to draw on the tax increment grant. But most don't, so it is foregone revenue. I would just say that, once you got the DC regime in place, there's a number of things we can do with all these changes that the province has put in place to exempt affordable housing from DCs and to stagger payments for DCs for rental housing. and if it's non-profit, it can be over 20 years. One of the programs that we have developed and used in a couple of places is the idea that that's effectively an incentive that's come from the Ford government for certain kinds of residential development in the province. So that's an incentive. What the CIP could do in that sense is not give a grant, although you could give a grant for the development charges itself, but you can fund the interest that is created by having that deferral. If the deferral includes some level of interest payment, such as for industrial commercial, you can always do, I think it's Section 9 of the DC Act, you can create a deferral agreement, it's going to generate interest, the CIP could be used to provide a grant equivalent to that interest. It's a little bit technical, as you can tell from I'm speaking, but the idea is I am a big fan of using a CIP to help with incentivizing even when you have DCs that you're putting in place. Right? It's a better, more nimble vehicle.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Go
could
ahead.
just make a comment, just to clarify, because we seem to be having a bit of discussion about development charge CIP, and I just want to be clear to council that the city has two separate and distinct CIP programs. The one we're talking about here is our commercial and tourism CIP that's mainly for downtown and our commercial and business area. So the item on the agenda for later in council, talking about the industrial CIP, is a completely separate CIP program from the one that's being talked about right now. And the DC part of that would be part of the other program, not this one. So I just want to make that clear, just not that the comments were not appropriate, but just that they would be with the other CIP, not the one that's being talked about now.
Thank you. Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to comment that I'm very pleased to see the boundaries extended for this CIP. It allows us a lot of opportunity to work with the rural tourism industry, and I liked your comment about the farmsteads. And I think what's going to be very important going forward with the staff team and applications is, when approved, getting this information out to the rural community and the rural businesses and the rural farms, so they are aware of this new program. And I think it's very exciting because it will be very helpful. And I also wanted to comment on the accessibility grants that are going to be part of this, again, if approved. I know our accessibility committee will be very pleased. And we have AODA requirements throughout our businesses and our municipality and our facilities, but we don't have the funds. And so here's an opportunity, or we have some funds, but it's never enough. And so I really like that this, and through this process with the staff team and the consultation, that these have been extended, because they're both very, very important to the tourism, commercial, and our community. Thank you.
You're on next, Councillor Card.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I would echo Councillor Sharp's comments. I think that this is a great-looking program. I love the boundary extensions, love the targeting of tourism sector. I think there's tremendous opportunities to kind of expand that thinking on just downtown targeted, which certainly it will provide a lot of support for businesses, property owners downtown as well. But I think there's tremendous opportunity to piggyback and really jumpstart some of our tourism, rural businesses as this region grows in that capacity. Tons of different options for different businesses. Thinking narrowly about downtown retail. This just is so great and wide and breadth. It's great. I love the foregone revenue. I think that's the way to go in the CIPs. The micro targeting that you're talking about. I think it's great bang for our buck. I just had one question. How often, and I know that it was a fair period in between updates here, but going forward in the future, in your professional opinion, how often would you recommend that the city update a program such as this?
Good question through you, Mr. Mayor. I think, if I could just, I think what the first thing you need to do is, and I say this quite often, is it's relatively straightforward for us to write a CIP. The implementation is the difficult piece. And so firstly, you have to start with the intention to fund it to a reasonable degree. Doesn't mean you need to be overly generous, but you need to have funds that you can work with, and you need staff time availability to do that. And then I think staff would then be responsible for just obviously managing the take-up and recording how the plan is working, both quantitatively and qualitatively. And I would say after year 3, no later than year 3, have a formal review where you're just making sure any changes to the programs need to be put in place. You may find that it's needed after, say 2 years. But I think the idea, to your point, is that there has to be you have to actively see how this is being implemented, whether it's being well received. I think it will be. The way it's structured is quite flexible, at the same time as being limited to certain types of land use. So I'd be pretty comfortable in that regard. And I know that if you do, you have an industrial CIP, and there are good reasons why we kept this as a discrete one. And I think if I read, you may be looking at undertaking some housing incentives. Again, different, so you don't want to match a document with industrial grants and housing grants necessarily, not necessarily the great bedfellows, but if you go to places like Belleville, for example, we do have, there's a plan there where it's a very comprehensive plan all in one document. So to the point specifically about monitoring and updating, at some point down the road, you're going to look at just the whole ease of implementation and the ease of marketing this thing. So it's a very good idea to do it. This is going to be very much a web-based document in the sense that to get access to people to understand the programs, it will be simplified. The document will always remain, but this will be an interactive thing online, I think. These are the incentives you have. And yeah, they should be actively monitored. So.
Thank you very much. Councilor Quinte, the last one.
Thanks. What is the definition of a hotel in this proposed CIP for the commercial and tourism CIP? I just want to make sure that it does not include short-term rentals.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. It's an important one. In fact, all of these definitions are ones where that's why we sort of went with the zoning firstly. So I'd have to get back to you on the particulars, but the idea is that it is commercial accommodations of a certain kind that would be, a commercial hotel in nature. It wouldn't be Airbnb.
So the zoning would look after it.
The zoning should look after it, but if you don't mind, what I am going to do is just take that question back and make sure that our glossary, which is in here at the back, does reflect that exactly, because that's our concern, frankly, is that we want to make sure that we are targeting, assisting the commercial accommodations market, if I can put it that way, in the way which maximizes your bang for the dollar. So certainly not to Airbnb, and there's a question of whether bed and breakfast. I think bed and breakfast would be viable, but let me verify that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Sheila Bradick and your entourage, you're on to tell us more about
Excuse me, Mayor Harrison?
Community Health Center.
Can I just, I have to give notice of how this meeting was published, so we're in keeping with our notice bylaw. The public notice was published in the Trentonian and Community Press on October 17th and 24th, and on the city's website on October 15th. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice. Go ahead, Sheila. You're on.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. In your packages, you had this slide deck, so we'll see if I'm able to keep my comments aligned with the slide deck or not. Be an interesting trick. Wanted to see, can't even do it. There we go. Okay. Wanted to take an opportunity to just bring you a bit of an update on what's happening with the Ontario Health Team. The HPE Ontario Health Team, as you know, is a collaborative of almost 50 primary healthcare organizations and health impacting organizations across HPE, including hospital, community health centers, primary care, and other organizations, mental health and addictions, CSS, and others that are not formally part of the healthcare system, but have a role to play. We've been working over the last several years, came to present about a year ago to give you a bit of an update on where we're at, and will again, so hoping to keep this short. We did have the opportunity to come together last night as part of a first piece of a process that we're embarked upon right now, which is about taking a look at how we're going to re-articulate and the OHT itself, as well as the future of healthcare in our region. Very much appreciated Councillor Card and CAO Clazy for joining us in that conversation. The thing that we've been spending most of our time on over the last little while, or a good chunk of our time over the last little while, has been on looking at primary health care reform. So looking at ways that we could come together in our community to strengthen primary health care and expand people's access to primary health care. We know that's an issue for council, we know it's an issue for people in our community, and it's certainly an issue for all of us working in health care. Certainly there's a significant percentage of the population in Quinte West that don't have access to primary health care. I would say about 22% or 20% don't have access, and we know that that impacts people's ability to access to be healthy, right? To deal with the conditions that they're dealing with. We know it increases their rate of hospitalization and access to the emergency department. And the frequency and why they're going to the emergency department as well. If people don't have primary health care and they need help, they have to go somewhere, and that's going to be the hospital. So one of the things we want to do is look at ways to support people to get the care in the community where they need it, so they're not having to go into a hospital. As mentioned, a significant percentage of the people in Quinte West are unattached to primary health care, or have an uncertain level of attachment. They may have seen somebody a while ago, but it's a bit questionable whether or not there's a robust attachment to their primary care provider. This is the interesting piece of the puzzle. We've been working, you may recollect that a year ago there was a call for proposals, expressions of interest from Ontario Health for expansion of primary health care. As a number of healthcare organizations in this region all worked really hard to submit proposals because we know it's really important. We all fired them off and none of us were successful. And so we've learned our lesson, and we've actually been working really, really hard over the last year to come together to articulate a shared picture of what we think primary healthcare needs to reform looks like and what needs to be included in that process, and to position ourselves to respond to an upcoming anticipated call for additional funding for primary care expansion. So we've been working since December, if you will, on this conversation, and I think that we've done a tremendous job of coming together and really understanding the import of a coordinated approach among us as providers, but that the importance of a coordinated approach is most important for the people that we're trying to serve. April to December, a lengthy, robust engagement process, looking at the data as much as we could find, and talking with folks that are both working in primary health care as well as folks who are unable to access primary health care. And we did have conversations with Ontario Health and representatives from Ministry of Health as well. Following that, then, we've had further conversations with the folks that are involved in delivering and designing primary health care, as well as folks that are needing to access that care, about what then, given all that we've learned, what then do we need to put in place? And consequently, from that, have been working with a smaller group to really refine that into a proposal or readiness for a proposal for submission to the province. We have been doing some not just talking about it, but actually doing a fair bit of work. The Prince Edward County Family Health Team has done a test of change around a community clinic whereby folks that aren't attached to their primary care are able to get episodic primary care. We've also had PAP clinics for people who are unattached to primary care. That started with one organization and has now grown to 6 organizations participating in that process. So when you get the letter from the city, from the province saying, hey, it's time for your PAP, you actually have somewhere to go to get it. And then building on those lessons learned from those experiences into the proposal that we've been working on. Diagrams are great. Sometimes they're coherent. So the proposal that we're really putting forward or conceptualizing is that within each area, we're calling them neighbors, there needs to be some place where people can go to get episodic primary care. Whether or not they're, especially if they're unattached to a primary care provider, there has to be somewhere to go that is not the hospital. And that we all, as primary care providers, need to cooperate in creating those opportunities and investing additional resources to make that happen so that there's some place for people to go. It would be staffed by a doc or a nurse practitioner, as well as some additional staff, so that if there's a piece of work that the doc or an NP doesn't need to do or cannot do as effectively as somebody else, there's a way to move that work to somebody who is able to help out. That's the first part of it, so establishing those clinics. Secondly, concurrent with that would be expanding access to allied health teams so that more people have access to more robust integrated primary health care based on their need. So we'd be able to see folks at the episodic care clinics, the neighborhood access clinics, if they need follow-up. With a more robust team, they're able to move into that stream as well. All of this work is going to be supported by a central intake and navigation system, some back office support. We are looking at the feasibility of a one EMR, electronic medical record, so that we're able to communicate effectively and follow up on patients so that patients aren't having to retell their story. They see somebody in the opposite care clinic, they go to the team later on, that information flows with them. And a variety of digital tools as well, things like AI Scribe or other such tools to reduce the administrative burden on primary care providers so that they're actually able to invest their time in direct client care rather than the administrivia that's often associated with that. Important administrivia, but not the thing you want to be spending your time doing. It's a staged approach, the neighborhood access, some expanded care, and then moving on, more fulsome expanded care over the course of time. What we see, I think, is an evolution of folks being able to access episodic care in a way that makes sense for them if that's what they need. For example, if I have a bronchial infection, I don't want to talk to you about my weight. I don't want to talk to you about, all kinds of other things. I just want to deal with my bronchial infection. And then when I'm ready to have that other conversation, or if things evolve and I'm dealing with COPD and I need a more robust response, that I'm able to access that more robust response through an integrated care team. So it's having the services that people need available to them at the right time and provided by the right people in the right place, and that everybody in our communities are able to access those services depending upon what's going on for them at a given time. If you need the episodic care, you're able to get that. If you need a more robust response from an integrated team, you're able to get that. The information flows back and forth, works as a continuum, if you will, to support you, each of us, as our health needs evolve over the course of time. What else should I tell you about that? It will require some additional resources, and we are anticipating a funding call from the province more on that. Certainly, the value proposition, lots of value in this approach for community, people getting the care they need in a timely manner, where they need it. People able to establish and maintain relationships with a provider, but also being able to maintain relationships, establish relationships with more. What we know is the more connections that you have, the actual greater likelihood you're able to get the services that you need. And whole person care. So being very mindful that we're dealing with not just medical issues. Medical issue may be the presenting thing, but it's often a social issue or a social determinant of health that is driving the need for care or connection. And that people are able to access preventative care as well as episodic care and ongoing treatment. Providers certainly being able to reduce the amount of time they're spending on administration and focus on medicine, being able to pick up a shift rather than feeling like you have to take on a business. So we know that we've got some primary care providers in the region that are retiring or wanting to retire or not wanting to operate a business, but are willing to pick up a shift or two or more to work in the sector if all of that administration and back office business is taken care of. Also being able to build on the knowledge and skills and expertise of a broader range of providers and to rely on each other. And that takes time to be able to build that, and that folks have the opportunity to do that and are supported in doing that. Greater work-life balance, and I believe improved quality of care. As mentioned, we're waiting for a call from Ontario Health for a proposal. When these slides were prepared, it was before Dr. Philpott had been appointed by Ontario, the ministry, to the Primary Care Action Team, which is a term that comes from us, actually. We're expecting, I expect Dr. Philpott to take some time to do her research, to look at the data, and then based on evidence-informed, data-informed, some decisions, make some recommendations about where there needs to be targeted investments in primary health care. And given the level of readiness for this community, HPE, as well as the need in our communities relative to others, I think we're well positioned to be successful, knock on wood, in securing an invitation to submit for a proposal for that. That's what we've been up to. I'm happy to take any questions.
How many million did the government spend on the building up by the hospital at Catherine Street?
14.
14, at least?
Mm-hmm. Oh, plus 6, so 20.
And now you're waiting for what?
Well,
I'm confused here.
yeah, so the building is one thing, right? We need to have the space where we can do our work. And that building that was built for the Community Health Center has been tremendous, and we've appreciated council's support in making that happen. And that actually allows us to provide our regular services. If we're able to secure some funding from the province to expand primary health care, we would be able to do things in this region like bring in more primary care providers, right? Would be able to bring in more social workers, more health educators, so that people who don't have a doctor now or don't have access to care, chronic disease prevention, for example, are able to get that. Our building will serve as a resource that would help to enable that. It's not the only thing that is required to enable that. All other primary care practices would have to cooperate in making all of this happen, and we know that. And we're all very keen to work together so that everybody in our community has access to primary health care.
Okay, I'll take a few more questions. Anyone? Question? Councillor Boyce.
Thank you, Your Worship. What a great presentation. 6 weeks ago, I considered myself lucky. I almost won the lottery. After 6 years, I finally got a doctor, which is great. And so I did have a question. In one of your slides, it says the prevalence of various chronic conditions was lower among unattached, and they talk about COPD, diabetes and stuff. Is it lower just because they haven't gone to a doctor and recognized that they actually have it? Like, that's my case. I didn't realize I had a few things until I actually was tested and stuff like this. So is that the reason why it's lower?
Yeah, there's not going to be just one reason, right? I think we know that there's a lot of the people who are unattached are young men, right? Young men have less reason to access primary health care, and often it's episodic care that they're looking for, right? So that's a contributing demographic to that. And yeah, if people are unattached, it may be that they've got less diagnoses, in part because they're not sick, or in part because we don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Councillor Sharp, go
Yes,
ahead.
thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Sheila and your team for the presentation. Just trying to better understand, at this point, you're sharing information, updating us on the services, but you're not asking for anything at this time. I see you're applying for the funds, and then it's, if we don't get them, what are next steps? So you're really just kind of giving us some heads up?
Yeah, it is if I may, it is a
Yeah.
heads up.
Okay.
Right? And I appreciate
Okay.
that, not asking for something maybe unusual. We'll come back though.
Okay.
And, yeah, when we have information about
Right.
when the application process is, if we're invited to submit, all of that, we will be seeking support, a letter of support from council, for example, as well as others, to support the proposal, and we'll make that available to you. At this point, we don't have a substantive proposal to share.
Okay.
It's notional at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
And I did want to comment too on the strengthening of the team that you've created the alliances and partnerships for these applications. And I also want to comment that the programs such as the PAP tests for women that do not have a doctor, and the more of those services, I think, are excellent, that, and they seem to be utilized. And we got to keep messaging that. It's life-saving, right? So, thank you for that service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I wanted to thank you, Sheila, for the great presentation and the event last night that you mentioned. So very, very informative, to say the least. I did have a question. I know a fraction about this world as you do. So one of the things that I kind of struggle with when I think about the lack of primary care and municipalities such as ourselves left to, I say, treat the symptoms with some of the incentives and retentions and all. And I appreciate from your angle, you're trying to come up with solutions kind of with available resources. One of the things that's been really striking to me on Doctor Recruitment Committee and dealing with some of the students is the pronounced lack of interest for the primary care stream now. It's almost become so common sense amongst medical students, I guess, that it, like, you're speaking to the administrative burden, all of these issues, running a business, they're not really prepared for that. And it's just, can you speak to what you think that the government of Ontario can be doing to shift the tide on that front, and or what they're currently doing, or in terms of medical school expansion of enrollment, what sort of solutions do you see from that end? Because I worry just all of these kind of tweaks that once it's filtered down to Quinte West, that we almost don't even have a chance if some of these first order solutions aren't found.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. Couple of things in my head is, number one, not all healthcare has to be provided by a primary care doctor or nurse practitioner, right? For me, I think investing in prevention and upstream interventions is incredibly important, and a way that we need to do that. And I'm fascinated to see, this is Sheila editorializing, fascinated to see the way in which the conversation is evolving in light of the health human resource crisis. Now the conversation is becoming more about prevention, because we know that it is cost effective in the long run, that it can make a difference in our communities, and that there's a lot of different folks that can be involved in doing that work. So a crisis is bringing to fore some other opportunity. With respect to the lack of interest among some folks in practicing family medicine, I think it's a true thing, right? I think that they're seeing parents and friends and hearing stories about how hard it is, how demanding it is, and how much a burden there is administratively, and how the systems that are intended to support them, such as it is, are not keeping up with the times, right? And I think that the challenge for all of us in the government of Ontario and the national government, frankly, is to really take a hard look at what are we incentivizing in our systems and to what end, right? And I think that, some of the efforts now about medical schools that are dedicated to primary health care to help people understand that are really good steps. And there needs to be a revisitation of things, in my estimation, like fee-for-service compensation models, right? And what are the structural pieces that enable people to do their work or interfere with their ability to do their work.
Just want to thank you for the presentation, and I congratulate you on your struggle that you're having to try and provide services for those who don't have it. I know it's tough, and I know I was lucky enough when our doctor retired, I had another one step in and take over, so I didn't have to go through what Councillor Boyce did, but I know people out there are the same way. So I wish you well in your future endeavors, and I think you're working on preventive medicine too, that to help people and instruct them in how to maybe better structure their lives so they can be better off medically down the road, and maybe prevent having to go to a hospital or have to have professional, I will say, extra professional medical help. But anyway, I thank you for your service and all the best in the future.
Councillor McHugh.
Thank you, Sheila. Great presentation. Councillor Card hit on something I was going to talk about, especially physicians today. They don't want to go into family practice because of the workload that's involved, the paperwork, administrative. You mentioned in one of your slides there that you've got a program where they can probably work a shift as opposed to running a business. Is there some way that when a doctor sees a patient, his information is transferred electronically? Could we have a separate building with people in it that handle all the records for the doctor so he can spend his primary time just dealing with patients? And if he needs something, he can access it via computer or by his phone before visits or after visits? They take the paperwork away from the doctor?
To an extent, right? There are ways to do that, right? And different models enable that. A salary-based community health center has people like me handling the administration and taking care of hiring the staff and all of that stuff, and the doctor comes in and does their doctoring. In a family health organization, doctors are depending, right? They are the business owners and have responsibilities related to being the business owner that are distinct, right? And it is, in part, the environment in which you want to practice. It's in part what environments are enabled in our communities. And it's in part just the way we've done things, right? And so being able to get past just the way we've done things and do things differently, and maybe explore different opportunities and maybe find ways to take the good things from all of the different models that are out there and bring them together and to minimize the harder things so that people who want to provide care, and I think that our family doctors and nurse practitioners want to provide care. They want to look after patients. That's why they got in it. They didn't get in it because they wanted to run a business.
Councillor Stedall.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for the presentation. I'm very interested in seeing the details when they do come out. I've been involved with one of the Ontario Health teams in the Western Ontario, and it was it worked very well. It was very supportive of myself and the neighbors, and everybody seemed to be able to get access. And this idea of consolidating the paperwork and minimizing the amount of work that needs to be done and the records following a patient, I think would help us immensely with a number of different hiccups that we have in our current system. So thank you very much.
Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Quinte.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So really, what you're asking us is to contact our new MPP and make the big push.
I never said that.
Well, that's what I'm hearing. So, and we aren't the only ones there. For people who are listening and in the audience, they can do the exact same thing. Thanks.
Councillor Reid?
I have nothing more to add. I think it's all been stated very well, but I do want to echo my appreciation for your report and your sharing that with us. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Sheila. I just want to know what I qualify for. I sprayed an apple orchard for 30 years. I used lead, arsenic, DDT, and mercury. That's all I used, so. Yeah, no, listen, it's strange. As I said from the start, we build a building, and then what do they think you're going to do? You got to have people. That's what you need. That's what we need. And we're all trying to do the same thing, but we're all, anyways, keep at it. Do you want to introduce your helpers tonight, or no? I know.
If you wouldn't mind, this is Christine Lewis and Abby Levitt, who are members of the backbone team for the HPE OHT, and we talk and these guys actually make things happen, so thank you.
Do they want to make a speech, too?
Thank you for your time.
I never had a Lewis here that wouldn't speak. Maybe his name was John. Maybe there's a difference. I'm just kidding. Anyways, thank you very much, and
Thank you.
I do appreciate the facility and the work that you are capable of doing, and I just hope that Premier understands that sooner rather than later, and so keep at it. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else for public input tonight? That's where we're next. Come on up.
Gotta state his name.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, staff, I'm here for two things. First, I just want to say I think it's a great city, and I think you all are doing a very nice job. I know it's a lot of long nights, a lot of hard work, so I know you don't hear it enough, but I really think you're doing a great job, and I thank you for all your efforts. The reason I wanted to put in a bit of public input tonight is that I hope my numbers are wrong, but I think that you are spending either $100,000 a year or $50,000 a year sending out water and sewer bills. And what I'm asking you to do is to direct staff to go to electronic billing quicker than they're planning on it. I did speak to members of senior staff about this, and they said the holdup is the 13 councilors moving forward. Now, that may have been a bit of an off, but according to the website, you've got 8,800 water and sewer connections. So if it's 8,800 bills going out at a buck a bill, because that's what since March, you charge someone $1 for a bill every month if they're a new connection. But for everybody else, we don't get charged. I don't get charged for my water and sewer bill. So if it's 8,800 connections, you do the math on that, that comes to $96,000 a year, sending out a bill once a month. And you have a staff upstairs stuffing the envelopes, so that's not even counting the staff expense. If that 8,800 actually means only 4,400 bills because you've got a water and sewer, the website wasn't clear enough. But I think worst case, or best case, you're spending $50K a year, and maybe it's as high as $100K a year. I don't know what the number is, but I think it's a pretty big number. You have started down the road of doing a bit of e-billing. I think you should accelerate that. The strategic plan of environmental stewardship and operational excellence would also be supporting this initiative. So I guess my comment and my question is, how much are we actually spending? I don't pay for my bill. I think I should, because if I want my Rogers bill, my bill, mobility bill, I have to pay for that or I get it online. So I encourage you to please move that initiative forward faster than it is. It seems to be a low-hanging fruit. So once again, thanks for all the great work all the staff and members do, and have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you.
And how would I find out what the bill number actually is? Or perhaps during this budget discussion, you could say, hey, there's $50K we can save every year, plus staff time. Okay, thanks. Good night.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate that. We'll do our best, I guess. Yeah. Okay. All right. Corporate services and resolution that by Sarah Pond, Legislative Service Coordinator regarding active transportation and traffic safety advisory committee matters for council consideration and approval be received. Mover and a seconder, Councillor McHugh move, Councillor Sharp second. Any comments or questions? Anyone? All in favor? Thank you. Okay, the next one is council received staff report from Director Angelo regarding Holland Street parking and large truck issues for information, and that council directs staff to designate Holland Street as a designated no heavy truck route. Well, let's get a mover and a seconder, and then we'll comment. Moved by Councillor McHugh, second by Councillor Stedall. Comments?
I wonder if it might be possible we do all 6 resolutions, they're all coming from the same department?
We can. I have no problem.
Councillor Stedall has a question.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Look at us.
You can still ask a question. We'll just do them all. Go ahead.
Sorry, thank you, Worship. My question is regarding report to do with Montrose traffic calming measures. So is that where we're going? Is like, there's a whole number of different reports. The other ones I have no questions on, but on that one.
You do them in order? Want to ask that one on that one, the calming ones?
Yeah, I know this is, I guess I want to clarify that this is a pilot project. I think the information that was requested from the community was from some time ago, probably started with previous council, and I just have a feeling that once they actually put in those traffic calming measures, I think that there may be a little bit of pushback. And so I just need to be able to confirm that it is going to be a pilot project, and if the public is not happy with it, that it could.
Director Angelo?
Through your worship to Councillor Settle, that is entirely correct. It is the 3 recommendations for traffic calming, Montrose Road, Leicester Road, and Couch Crescent are pilot projects. After a year of being, after they've been in place, I'll bring a report back to the Active Transportation and Safety Committee with recommendations on whether they're going to be permanent or not, based on feedback and success or not of the pilot projects.
Okay. Councillor Armstrong.
Concerning Couch Crescent and Montrose, the numbers are 3 for Couch Crescent and 4 for Montrose. That's not in cement, is it?
Through your worship to Councillor Armstrong, no, it's not. Those are some estimations that staff had come up with that I presented in the report, but it certainly could be less than that as well, or more, depending on the length of street and length of concerns.
Councillor Quinte.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. If we're going to pass these all together, then I can't support them, because during the Active Transportation and Traffic Safety meeting, I was not in favor of adding the stop sign at Leicester Road and Freedom Crescent. So that part of the meeting didn't pass unanimously, while the other ones, if memory serves me correctly, did. And so, for that reason, I won't be able to support any of the others if we're going to mush them all together.
Mr. Mayor? Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Director Angelo?
Mr. Mayor, perhaps I can clarify, and perhaps our chair, Councillor Sharp, can clarify as well. The reports that have my name on it are just appendices to the minutes from the Active Transportation Committee. Those were provided as information for all of council, but those all got recommended and are part of the minutes that Mrs. Pond has put in her report to council.
Thank you. Thank you. That clarifies it. Okay. Councillor Sharp?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Angelo covered it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? So, we got a, can we do them all at once, or do you want to do each one? It doesn't matter to me, whatever works.
Your worship, if I can clarify again, those reports are just appendices to
the minutes.
To the minutes. Council's already approved the minutes, so you don't need to go through each one of those reports and approve them.
Okay, so we received them for information, is that what you're saying?
You received and approved the report from Mrs. Pond, as I believe.
Yes, we did that.
Yes,
But then,
so that included all the recommendations from the committee that I brought forward.
okay. All right, so what do we need to do with the resolution that's in front of us? Is there anything other than receive? Do I need a mover and a seconder to receive them all? If that's all I need.
So, I'll say for information.
See for information.
Receive for information, yeah. That's what I'm
To you,
saying.
Mr. Mayor, they've already been moved and seconded when you received the minutes,
Okay.
so nothing necessary here.
Okay, so then they're all accepted then, is that what you're telling me? Okay.
Don't need to vote.
Don't even need, do you need a vote?
Yes.
Yeah.
Got a motion on the floor.
All right, all in favor of the motion?
Sorry.
Okay. I
One
hope you-
question before it gets passed. So if
Hope
I'm
somebody
reading,
knows what it is.
well, so when I'm looking at, and maybe I'm confused, like, similar to Councillor Quinte, is the staff report QW 2024-00177. That report has got a number of recommendations that are in it. So I'm not sure where I'm missing that you're talking about the minutes. Like when you approve the minutes, that doesn't necessarily mean the resolution's passed. That's why there's a separate report, and that separate report has the individual resolutions. Right?
Well,
Accepting the
I
minutes does
think
not.
we're looking at it two different ways, but I think the same outcome comes from it.
No. With procedural, I mean, we can check on this going forward, but just approving minutes does not necessarily mean that you're approving the resolutions.
Well, but
It's
we
just-
don't usually take the resolutions out of the minutes like this.
Yes, we
So
have.
That's
Yes,
what I'm saying.
we have been doing
We're
that.
trying to get to the same objective, approve the minutes, which we've already done.
Right, but the minute approval does not necessarily approve that that just approves that we adopt the minutes. And this has been a discussion that's
Well,
gone on before here,
That's
is
6
that.
of one, half dozen the other.
No, it's separate,
Okay.
they're separate procedurally, and so this adoption of the resolutions within the report on QW 2024-0177, those are individual resolutions, so that's why they can come forward and council can decide not to accept any of those recommendations.
But you've already approved the minutes, and this is part of the minutes. That's where I'm coming from, so.
Mr. Mayor, there's not actual minutes for the committee. This is the report that's coming forward with all the resolutions that were approved at the committee for ratification by council.
Okay, then, if I could, Mr. Mayor, then Councillor Quinte is correct, and Councillor Stadall, that each individual resolution has to be approved here, not just received, from what I'm hearing. So just for clarity then tonight, could we go with all the resolutions to be received or approved, save and accept the item related to Councillor Quinte on
Well,
the stop sign?
We can, but we've already approved the minutes. Is that
I-
not correct?
I know,
Is
but
that-
now we've got some-
And that is part of the minutes if you listen to the meeting. Correct?
Mr. Mayor, there's no minutes from the meeting in front of council tonight. There's this report with the resolutions to ratify what was discussed at the committee.
So we haven't dealt with the committee minutes at all.
Correct.
Okay, all right, okay. All right.
I'd be happy to change my,
Okay, well, we'll have to do them each individually, then is what if we haven't done the minutes, so that's it.
Well, your worship, you can approve all of them, save and accept as the chair has mentioned, Councillor Quincy's.
Lester Road,
Thank you.
page 40.
Yeah.
That's the road.
Page 40.
Yep.
Thank you.
But my point is that Councillor Quincy is a member of council, he's not a member of that committee, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes, I am on that committee, and I didn't.
You're on that committee.
And I
but the
did not
committee-
support,
Just hold on, the committee approved it, correct?
I didn't, but the
Well,
committee did.
But that's not, you're a member of the committee, and the committee approved it.
And I just
So you
want
can't, it's the same as council, if council approves it, that's it, even if you disagree.
No, the
No,
committee is recommending to
Yes, it is.
council. The committee is
Only
just making a
recommending.
recommendation to the council. The council has the final say.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Okay, well, if you're gonna pick it apart, then why have the
I'm
committee?
not picking it apart. That's exactly how it works. It always has.
Oh, no. Anyways, what do you want? Do you want each one done separately? Is that what you'd like, or can we do them,
save and accept that.
save and accept the one?
We can do save and accept the one.
Lester Road.
Yeah.
Okay, everything except, save and accept Lester Road. Still doesn't make sense to me, but anyways, I've got a mover and a seconder for everything but that?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, so now, what are you gonna do with Lester Road?
You're going to ask
The
for a vote
committee, the
separate.
committee approved the stop
The
sign.
committee made a recommendation to council.
I will move the recommendation to proceed with Lester Road.
And I'll
Okay, so
second it.
you're moving and you're seconding it, okay,
And
thank
for
you.
the record, I don't support it.
Okay, so we've got a
There
mover
you
and a
go.
seconder for the stop sign at Lester Road.
Yeah.
Okay,
So one of the things in the staff report mentioned several, ideas and services and technical issues and some physical barriers, as well as including stop signs. There were several items listed in the report for traffic calming measures. The report was excellent. I don't remember the number now. There was like 13 or 14 different items that were presented, including speed bumps, road painting, bollards,
well,
mini
just get
roundabouts and
to
all
the
that
point.
sort of thing, and stop signs. And one of the things that mentioned in the stop signs was that it was not highly recommended that we take the approach of installing stop signs. And I questioned Mr. Angelo at the time, and he did agree that this is a different situation. Yes, it is. But one of my experiences adding stop signs to an intersection that has not ever had a stop sign before, my experience is it really doesn't work. And that's my concern. I'd rather see speed humps, which I think is in Lester Road as well. And also there's already a stop sign on Lester Road at the very western end. And in the past, there was complaints about people not stopping at that stop sign. So if we're gonna add another stop sign, maybe that'll make the first one that was there in the first place work better, but it needs some attention. We did try painting, the road line, a stop bar on the intersection there at the very very western end of Lester Road. And we should also put some blinking signs on the, like a solar flashing light on both of the stop signs to just remind people, hey, there's a stop sign here. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Director Angelo, any comment this time? Or would you like to take another look at this and come back? Or what do you tell me? Give us direction.
Thank you, Worship. I believe my recommendation is still valid. It was supported by the committee. As you're aware, there was a fair bit of discussion at the committee level about this three-way stop. It's a transition from an urban area to a rural area, and I still firmly believe that a three-way stop is in the best interest of slowing vehicles down in that area.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? All in favor of the 1, 2, 3, 4? Carried, thank you. Okay. Where am I now? I don't know where. Which one? Okay, the next one I've got is by Louise Smith, Deputy Clerk, Accessibility Coordinator regarding Accessibility Advisory Committee. Matters for council consideration and approval be received. Okay. And mover and a seconder for this one. Councillor Elliott moves, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Comments or questions? All in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, the next one I've got is the minutes of the Accessibility Committee meeting held on September 5th. Be approved. Mover and a seconder for this one. Councillor Armstrong moves, seconded by Councillor Reid. Any other question, Councillor Reid, or? No? Okay, any questions or comments? All in favor? Thank you. Approved. The next one is the Financial Services report by Director Denowden that investment results third quarter be received. Councillor Quinte, Councillor McHugh. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Quick comment. We're moving in the right direction. Thanks.
Thank you. Even though the interest rates went up, is that what you mean?
Just keep thinking positive. It's
Okay.
starting to work just like we hoped it would.
Thank you. Keep thinking positive. The interest rates didn't go up, they went down, so, okay. All right, thank you. The next I've got.
All in favor?
Yeah, all in favor. I need to know that. All in favor. Thank you. Carried. Okay, resolution by Linda Lyle that by Linda Lyle, Manager of Economic Development and Tourism, and Elizabeth Edwards, Economic Development Officer, regarding industrial lands, community improvement plan revision, development charge incentive be received, and that council directs staff to review and report back to council with considerations on the existing industrial lands community improvement plan in light of recent changes to the development charge exemption to ensure competitiveness in the market. Need a move in the seconder. Councillor McHugh and Councillor O'Neill. Okay, comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Stedall.
Thank you, Worship. I guess with regards to the conversations that we had earlier, the one thing that I'd like to see if that, staff reviews it, make sure, consultation is also in consultation with the finance department and possibly in consultation with the consultants that we used in order to prepare the development charge study, because what I heard tonight about that potential CIP where money might come back out of development charge reserve concerns me. So I just like to make sure that, staff is going to do a full summary and ask our experts that we've just hired and have helped us develop the development charge study.
Okay, thank you.
And
Councillor Quinte, go ahead.
And also include Chris King and his fine team in the consultants that we reach out to.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Anything else? Anyone else? Anyone else? All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay. Are we at the ones we want now called confirmation? Anything from staff that we need to hear?
No, proclamation.
I know, I got that. I was just going to ask if there's anything from staff. Anything nope, I'm good if you're good. Okay, next is new business. That's
Proclamations.
proclamation submission received from Sylvia Hanarian, Canadian Premature Babies Foundation, requesting council proclaim 2024 as World Prematurity Day in the city of Quinte West. So that proclaimed November 17th. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor McHugh moves, seconded by Councillor Sharp. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Thank you very much. Okay. Printed information, any questions on printed or non-printed? I like that non-printed, I really enjoy that one. Councillor said, I'll go ahead.
Sorry, just to note that we're still seeing support of our resolution coming in from different municipalities like Post and Wainfleet in regards to the I call it the federal gas tax, but the CCBF and that funding not being enough for it. And I know, we have that conversation a number of times about how do we fund our infrastructure, and we're still having that conversation. And I believe, I haven't heard that we've had any response from anybody. We've had support of many municipalities, but we still haven't seen any response from our MP, our MPP, the federal government. Like, it's been absolutely zero silence on
I've heard
that.
exactly the same amount as you have.
So
And
that's-
I just recently talked to him too.
Yeah,
But
just,
anyway,
anyway, okay, thank you.
I wished I could say.
It's good to see the support and we're on the right track, but I think it merits, we are able to go to AMO and Roma and talk to our, provincial colleagues and ask for money, but there just doesn't seem, the federal government does not seem to be listening, so.
Same as
anyway.
Executive Bradick. They spent 17 million on that new build up there. And they don't give her anything to support what she's trying to do. It just, discouraging for her and absolutely ridiculous from my point of view. But I won't tell everybody that.
You just
Keep it a
did.
secret. Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, I'm.
All the vote?
All in favor of the confirmation or?
I need a mover and a seconder, please.
Okay. Okay, all in favor, that's good.
Mayor Harrison,
Carried.
I need a mover.
What else we got left?
I need a mover and a seconder for the
Moved by
printed and
Councillor
non.
Card.
Need a mover.
I didn't get a mover and a seconder for
Okay, I
printed.
got you one. Got a mover. And I got a seconder on my right. They get extra money.
Thank you.
Don't say that.
Don't tell lies, right? No, they won't get any extra, you're right. Okay. All right, notice of motion, Councillor Card, do you want to mention yours here?
Thank you, Your Worship. And so I guess just a brief preamble. Obviously, council had a very fulsome debate on the development charges, and though there were some differences, some variation in opinion, it was adopted. But one of the things that stuck out to me is that I believe that there was a consensus on council, and though we lacked the tools of a phased-in approach without existing taxpayers covering the difference, there was a consensus from council that we all want to support the builders and developers in the community to ease the housing crisis as much as we can while growth pays for growth. So I saw this as an opportunity, maybe one of the few other levers that we have to support that industry in Quinte West in terms of their deferral agreement with the city. And so I just brought to council basically a notice of motion. I don't have to read it, but just basically directing staff to engage with QHBA and update the agreement in light of the passing of time and new industry challenges. And I had a couple of things that I thought might be amenable to them in terms of extending the deferral length from 6 to 12 months, which I think would help tremendously with larger builds, semi-detached or some large houses, help cash flow for some of the small builders. And then a second aspect that I hope we can look at and the agreement staff can look at is potentially, and Director Denouden, I should point out, expects this to come back in the first quarter, late first quarter. So this will be long after the December 1st change of the rate. But I also wanted to investigate if the feasibility of locking in when you pull the building permit and the deferral application is accepted, locking in that rate for the 12 months or occupancy, whichever comes first, and investigating the possibility of that happening. Because right now what happens is within the 6 months, if there is a January 1st in between from when they pull the permit to occupancy or the 6 months is up, they are paying for the January 1st construction index increase, which can be fairly substantial these last few years. But anyway, so that is my notice of motion.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much, and I just want to clarify that the development charge we put in place is based on the amount of money we need to complete the project list that you have in front of you. So now if you're going to cut or decide or make changes to the development process that we put in place, you've got to come back to staff, and the council's got to come back to staff and say, these are the projects that we're going to ask you to delay until we get the funds. And that's the crutch of this whole thing. So we'll leave this till next council meeting, but that's where I'm coming on it. So, okay, anything else? Otherwise,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If I can, just to clarify, Councillor Card's motion would not affect the actual development charge that was approved by council at the last meeting. This notice of motion is to look at an agreement we currently have with the home builders that does allow them to potentially defer the payment that they make to us later than on the building, than when they get the building permit. And what the
and I understand that. That's not what I said. I said if you make any changes to the amount of money that we have already agreed on, then council's got to come back to you and staff and say, these are the projects that we're saying you do not have to do or complete.
My intention was not to, Your Worship, to change the amount. I don't think that it would have any effect, no.
I know. I'm just saying I'm not in agreement with that either, and that's what I'm saying. Okay, Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to CEO Clazy. It's just deferring the payment to either they sell the house or...
Yes.
But it's not going to affect anything else other than that, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It's basically, this agreement allows for potentially a different time for the developer to pay the city other than when they issue the building permit. And they're basically the parameters around that.
Okay, Councillor McHugh.
I have a copy of the old agreement here dated March the 19th, 2018, and basically it states they can pay it on any date which is after the date of issuance of the building permit and up to and including the date of occupancy or within 180 days following the date of issuance of the building permit. So basically they pay when they pull the building permit, or they sit on it for 180 days, or when they sell a house, whichever comes first. That's what this agreement was before, and I think that was probably the intentions of Councillor Card to have something similar to that come back.
Right, just with a longer time period potentially. I'm making suggestions. I don't want to direct, what QHBA, of course, will have their say and their input on what, potentially they'd like to see. These were just suggestions from my point of view, but I know in talking to builders that some of the larger homes and semis and whatnot can take longer than the 6 months, so extending that time period would help them cash flow wise, especially with some of the smaller builders. That can be, I'm sure make a significant, difference in if we can carry them for that extra 6 months. So between that and the January 1st indexing, holding that off if they pull the permit before, those were just two suggestions. But my intention, I should state also, was that Caleb would bring back, engage QHBA and come back with the agreement for council to ratify, of course. So we'll certainly have another kick at the can, so to speak.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Director Angelo to give us some comments. You've been working with another level of government on the Canal Bridge. You want to give us some updates on where you're at and what's happening?
Thanks, Your Worship. If you're referring to the bridge on Loyalist Parkway or former Highway 33 called the Carrying Place Swing Bridge, or some refer to as the Murray Canal Bridge, there is a road closure happening, or nighttime closure happening November 12th to the 21st, save and except for the weekend, as Parks Canada staff reinforce the structure itself so that there isn't any load limit going forward. I also understand that Parks Canada have put in their 2025 capital program the design for the replacement of that bridge. They recognize that that bridge is probably going to need to be replaced sooner than later. Originally, we were told it was going to last 20 years, but I don't think that's the case. They're looking at designing that for a wider bridge and accommodating an active transportation path on the one side, something that we've encouraged them to do for the last several years, rather than building our own pedestrian bridge that links our trail system from the urban area of the downtown core all the way through to Young's Cove and Weller's Bay. In addition, Council may recall that we did some traffic counting there a couple of years ago, and we were somewhere around, over the long weekend in September, well over 40,000 vehicles on crossing that bridgeway, and 2/3 of that, or roughly 12,000 vehicles, are on the Brighton Road Bridge. So substantially a lot more traffic entering and exiting Quinte West on that structure itself. And I can only imagine that that's probably accelerated since that time frame, that the amount of traffic. So the need is justified to expand that bridge and replace it with a wider bridge with an active transportation path.
Thank you. Any idea on what they're talking dollar-wise, or did you? No, okay.
I do not know, Your Worship, no.
Thank you, okay. Councillor Boyce.
Just to vote on the motion, the notice of motion.
I have a question on that.
We don't have to, it's a notice of motion.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, because it was on the agenda.
Oh, okay, all right.
It can be dealt with tonight.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute.
All in favor of the notice of motion?
No.
Pardon?
No, I haven't even seen it. Mr. Card didn't read it. I have no idea what it says.
It's on the agenda.
It's in the agenda.
It's not on my agenda. I got an agenda on my email just like everybody else did. I've read the agenda. I did not see a notice of motion that was sent to me on my email for tonight's meeting.
Everybody else has seen it? Everybody else?
I'm not voting on it and I want a recorded vote then.
I have questions
Well, if
about
that's what we're
this.
going to do, I prefer get moved to the next meeting so that I actually have a chance to read it and ask any questions.
Okay, so you're putting a deferral motion forward?
I don't see why we have to. You said it was a notice of motion and it comes to the next meeting.
I was corrected.
Then yes, defer it to the next meeting, please.
I got to move it to defer. Do I have a seconder to defer? That's what I have to have.
Question, there's not a rush on this, is there, if we did defer? Just a question.
No rush from my point of view.
Is there,
I don't have a rush, no.
because I would second the deferral. I'm looking forward to seeing this agreement, and I support the notice of motion, and seeing the detail that comes back, because it was an outdated agreement, but I don't see that it has to be rushed and
Okay,
give
so you
additional time.
second
I will
you second the deferral. Okay, all in favor of the
Can I
deferral?
ask a question about this? Like, just going back, like, if.
I know, go
So
ahead, give me a question.
That agreement, I mean, I would like it to be vetted through planning, because my understanding is that the development charges, and when the building permit is issued, that there's already a freeze under Bill 1, whatever, one of the bills that the government's come out with, so you don't pay that rate, you don't pay it right away anyway. So whatever we have for this agreement, I think it needs the bigger picture, not just with finance, but with planning, as to what actually happens and what the process is, because I think I don't think we need the agreement. I think that the legislation that stands right now with the province already covers us. But I would recommend that not just review of the agreement, but just review the process as well, so what happens.
I'm not disagreeing. Director Jardine.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Council. To Councillor Steddle's point, yeah, there's a number of things going on right now that impact development charges, both the waiving of, reduction of, and the point of collection. Some of them come from provincial legislation. Some of them, such as the agreement that Councillor Card is speaking to, are our own bylaws. So I think I understand the intent of the notice of motion, and what I believe staff would be taking from that is that while Councillor Card gave a couple of suggestions of possible things that we could look at, they're not the direction from Council. The direction is merely to engage with Quinte Home Builders, to look at the agreement that's currently in place, have a conversation with them around what terms and conditions could change. We will cross-reference that with any other legislation, plus together any implications, financial or time-wise, that come out of that conversation, and bring that together to Council in the form of a report. I don't think there's any decisions, no direction to make specific changes at this point in time. We haven't even entered into that conversation with Quinte Home Builders, and to Councillor Steddle's point, some of the things that they may be looking for or may suggest may already be dealt with through other forms of legislation. So we're working on combining some of these just now. As Councillor Steddle said, there's a whole number of different competing impacts on development charges, and we're looking at them across the board. If there's direction from Council to reopen a conversation with Quinte Home Builders on the city's bylaw, we will do that, but we will do it in the context of other legislation.
Thank you very much. Director Angelo, I have a letter that I received from Trees for Life. Did you get it as well?
No, Your Worship, I haven't.
Well, it's obviously encouraging us to plant more trees. So do you want to, can you bring us a report, an update? I'll give this to you. An update on what our plans are for 2025 and.
I don't think we finished with this notice of motion yet, have we?
Well, I thought we had.
Well, we had a deferral on the floor, I thought.
Well,
A second for a deferral.
But we don't need to do that. That's what Director Jardine just said.
No.
Mr. Mayor, you have a mover and a seconder for a deferral. You need to vote on that to see where that goes, and then take it from there.
All right. All in favor of the deferral? 2, 3, 4, 5. It's lost. Deferral's lost. Thank you.
I thought with Councillor Reid, Councillor Sharp,
Okay,
Councillor
hold your
Boyce,
hand.
the three of us here, doesn't that add up to 6?
You need,
There's not 13 today.
Oh, okay, you got
2 missed. 11.
5, and one more is 6, so it is, did you, Counselor Reed, vote to deferral?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so it is 6 would carry it, sorry. So it is deferred?
Yeah.
Okay? Sorry.
And
I'm
can
still
someone
living
make
on
sure that
13.
I get a copy of it so I can actually read it then? That'd be great.
Yes, you can direct or talk to somebody, they'll give you. Okay, anything else then? Anything else? No, nothing else? Bylaws?
Still the bylaws. We're still-
I have some things I want to ask. Can I go
Okay,
now?
the
or what?
bylaws, let's do the bylaws. We read it first. Need a mover for the bylaws. Counselor Armstrong move. I need a seconder. Counselor Sharp, okay. All in favor, read the bylaws, sign, and, okay, carried, thank you. All right, Counselor Quinte, what have you got next?
Parks and Recreation Committee, is there a tentative date for the master plan open house? That's one. I have 2 other points after.
Are they all for Director Grimmin?
No.
Okay, well, let's take one then. We'll take the first one and get an answer.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Quinte. Not a confirmed date. We are working on a date for the last week of November and second week of December. So I'll certainly confirm that once our consultant follows up.
Okay.
The second week of December is not very far away.
That's right.
Not a lot of notice.
Christmas isn't there. Go ahead, second question.
The other one was in the tonight's agenda, there was minutes from the Community Safety and Well-Being Committee that was dated November the 27th, 2023. That seems like a really long time to get to council. Just making an observation. There wasn't really anything in there that's of any consequence. I just find it very odd that it's almost, 11 months and a couple of weeks before it gets to the council. So don't really like that. And then the last point I wanted to ask staff, and you don't have to answer tonight, but if you have an answer tonight, that's great. Recently in the news, the federal government is reducing immigration. And my question is, and I can't see how it wouldn't, but maybe I'm wrong, how does that affect our recently passed city's official plan in regarding to our population growth going forward? Because that directly relates also to our recently passed development charges that we are intending on, we've voted to implement, and also included in that is population growth. So my question, reduction of immigration affecting growth for the city of Quinte West going forward.
I don't know. Anybody got an answer for that one? I don't. Director Jardine, do you have an answer?
Through your worship, I definitely don't have an answer, no, but maybe a comment. I don't foresee, there's certainly nothing being brought to the city or municipalities' attentions at this point in time that we have to, or we're being expected to adjust our growth expectations or our population projections. I think obviously as we've all seen the federal decision around is there in permanent residency and number of applicants they're bringing in, but there's nothing that directly connects it to municipal growth targets. So I think my expectation would be that we won't be asked to change our growth targets or our population projections as a result.
Just to follow up to that, because included in the city's official plan is information directly from the Canadian government in their census and how they've been letting everybody know that their projected growth might be or would be or could be. And at that time when they wrote it, immigration was like the door was wide open, and now it's not wide open anymore. Anyhow, I'm just making an observation. I can only think that it is going to affect us in some way. Maybe it's only 20 people, maybe it's 200 people, who knows? Anyways, it is going to affect us, which of course costs money.
Anything else? No. Okay, coming this way.
New business. Last week, I brought up the topic of the Remembrance Day Crossroads. With this in mind, I'd like to have staff prepare a report about installing Remembrance Day crosswalks in Quinte West. There are a number of communities who have installed them recently, Stony Creek and just recently Belleville. Because we are in a military town, councilors have been getting lots of requests looking into this and having them installed. My observation, along with others, is that the crosswalks use symbols such as poppies, soldiers, flags, etc., which are receiving criticism from legions and associations, etc. So if we do them, we need to ensure that they include all military services, first of all, Army, Navy, Air Force, Merchant Marine, and any others I'm not aware of. And with this in mind, a respectful symbol for each of those be installed. Since we have two legions, Frankfurt and Trenton would be my preference or suggestion that crosswalks be installed there. I know Councillor Card would like to expand upon this, so I think it's an issue that we'll let Director Angelo come back with a report on. Okay.
And he's got to consult with the various people that he deals with.
That's right.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I think if that's the direction of council, then I would ask that we have a mover and seconder for a resolution to direct staff to look into that and bring a report back, please.
Sorry. Moved by Councillor Arm, need a seconder. Councillor O'Neill. Okay. Staff bring back a report.
Vote.
Chris, Director Angelo, you got a comment before I call the vote?
Just one question for your worship, and for council to consider. Are we just looking at Remembrance Day crosswalks, or are we looking at other type of crosswalks across the province? I've seen other municipalities recognizing National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, where they're doing a crosswalk painted for Every Child Matters. So if those are types of venues that council wants me to look at, I can certainly look at that and bring a more fulsome report back to council on different types of crosswalks throughout the municipality.
What are you, what's the estimated cost? I know this one out here, you said around 20,000, is that correct, or? No.
Your worship, if I can recall correctly, the durable crosswalks, like the durable markings like we did out here, were about $5,000 each. Line painting is about $1,500, depending on. But again, it depends on the scope of work, the amount of painting you're putting down, the durable markings. But I'll put that all together, this fulsome report, back to council.
Councillor Card.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I would suggest actually that Director Angelo, if we may amend the motion to include some of those other options, I would suggest that that's a good idea. Possibly the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee taking a look also, possibly giving input before it comes to council, but I would like to see that as well. And as Councillor Armstrong said, it is a sensitive topic, the symbolism, and I know that Director Angelo will work with community stakeholders to make sure that any options that council allocates funds, that it will be supported in the community.
Got to come to budget. Councillor Stedall.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to get a costing on all of this, because it sounds like there could be a number of different crosswalks and this paint and different types and the whole process, staff time in order to design them, et cetera. I mean, we have roads that aren't paved. We have shoulders that need to be completed. We have some structural, and I have no issue with these sidewalks, and the crosswalks, I was fine when it was one. But now if we're going to expand it to make it this, a more fulsome program, my concern is the money. And I just don't know that we can afford to do that expanded program.
It'll all have to come to budget and be dealt with the budget as such. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd support the motion with respect to coming back and doing a report on this particular crosswalk suggestion, which, was related to Remembrance Service and it seems to be more common in the communities now, and get all the detail from our legions and so forth. Now we're going to start looking at crosswalks for different
causes.
Organizations or causes. Then we're opening, and would certainly come back to budget. But now we would have crosswalks for many age. Anyway, we have our flags for various organizations, various services we want to remember, and other programs. But if we're going to start doing crosswalks for a number of things, and that cost and that program and that initiative is going to be a lot to consider. I just want to say that up front. I was certainly supportive of moving forward with the Remembrance Service crosswalk. But now if we're getting into other crosswalks, then that's a whole other cost involved. Thank you.
Yep, everything has a cost, nothing is free, that I know of, anyway. Anything else? Councillor O'Neill?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too would support the Remembrance Day type of theme, but if we do more, my other concern is safety. We're going to confuse too many people on crosswalks, and I don't think and if we do more, we're going to miss out on different people, and I think we should just limit ourselves to one.
Thank you.
Theme.
Thank you very much. I don't,
Theme.
there's everything becomes complicated and obviously more involved and more difficult. Sorry. Okay, I got it on. Anything else? Anyone else? Otherwise, I'm.
Mr. Mayor, I think we need a vote on the motion for the report. So in my understanding is the motion is just for the Remembrance Day crosswalks, unless the mover and seconder wish to change that.
So that's the motion. All in favor of that motion?
I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Sorry. All in favor of the motion. The motion is just to do the crosswalks, nothing other.
Remembrance.
For Remembrance Day.
I'm sorry, Remembrance Day crosswalk, yeah. That's it.
Okay.
Okay. Carried, thank you. Okay. Confirmation bylaw, thank you. Confirmation bylaw, mover and a seconder. Mover, can't get one, Councillor Card and Councillor Elliott. Confirmation. Anything from staff? Anything at all? If you're all good? I don't want you leaving here with being upset about something. Anyways, thank you very much. 2 for adjournment. Anybody
Front of yours.
Oh,
Okay? Certainly.
with my phone?
No, no.